A deep dive into Evan Mobley and what the ceiling for the Cavs' hopeful unicorn could be. That's coming up in just a second. And what else, Jason?
Donovan Mitchell versus the media. Did we screw him? We're going to talk about it.
The Ultimate Cavs Show starts right now. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Mikey McNuggets, Jason Lloyd, as always, for an early edition of the Ultimate Cavs Show. Jason's driving to Michigan tonight, so we had to get it in so he could get on the road. The Cavs are set to take on the Utah Jazz tonight. It was just announced Donovan Mitchell will not play tonight, Jason. He is out, still recovering from his knee, probably just load management. They have a back-to-back here with Phoenix coming up tomorrow, so nothing to freak out about there, but something happened after the game on Sunday against Denver that I think is worth talking about, and we're going to start today's show with whether or not Donovan Mitchell was essentially done dirty by the media. Now, to make sure you guys have the context, we'll break down what happened, and then, Jason, you've been in NBA locker rooms more than 99.9% of the population could ever dream of. You give us a little insights into what happened. Was it fair or foul reporting, and kind of give us tie all the loose ends up for us. But after the loss to Denver, Chris Fedor, who does a really good job covering the Cleveland Cavaliers for Cleveland.com, has a Discord or a subtext or some sort of insider text where he sends out updates right after locker room access before he has a chance to sit down and write the story. And this was his text following the game on Sunday. We'll be writing the full story later, but Donovan Mitchell was pissed in the locker room after this one. Referenced a few things him and I talked about earlier this season, the team not making positive strides he was hoping for. In his words, when recapping the loss, it's effing April, Chris. It's effing April. Notice the pissed in all caps, excuse me. Then there was some, how do you read the story? Yada, yada, yada. The article comes out. Chris gives context to the conversation Donovan had with the media. No one really made too much of it. It felt kind of on brand. I think, Jason, you said on the show Monday, Donovan was right in everything he said. It's time to call out the team. It is April. It's time to start putting the pieces together if they're going to make a playoff run. And then last night, Serena Winters, the Bally sports reporter for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who also does a really good job covering the team, gave us the video of the conversation that Chris was quoting. And when you hear the video, it paints a little bit different picture than the initial text that got sent out. Here was Donovan, and the part of the quote is where he says it's effing April. This is Donovan Mitchell giving that quote to the media after their 29-point loss to Denver.
The most troubling aspect of this one.
I would just say the full 48 minutes, it just wasn't there. You know what I mean? I told you at the beginning of the season, if we had these struggles at this point, then it's a problem. I mean, that can't happen. But at the end of the day, I can say all this now. We have to find a way to figure it out. You know, I'm gonna say what I say now, but it's not gonna linger after tonight. We have to watch the film. We have to get back to what we do, but it can't happen. And it's 1 through 15. It can't happen. And you know, one guy I'm gonna give a lot of credit to throughout this whole stretch of Caris LeVert. Like, he's been fucking phenomenal. You know, Jared Allen as well. Evan's been, good. Like, there's different things, but we all gotta do it. And we could all point to shit. We could all point to. I could be like, oh, I'm not, like, no. It's April. It's fucking April. So we gotta figure it out, and we will.
So that was the actual video of said interaction with Donovan Mitchell and the media. Maybe he was pissed off beforehand. He didn't seem pissed in the video, but you could always change your demeanor when there's a camera in front of you, Jason. So what do you take away from this whole interaction? Was Donovan portrayed in a negative and wrong light? Did Chris give the proper context? As someone who's been in the locker rooms and been in that situation before, what do you make of this whole back and forth between Donovan Mitchell and how his comments after the loss to Denver were portrayed?
First of all, there's a bunch of different ways to go with this. You can splice pissed in all caps if that was worth that or not. I don't think he was happy. I think you could tell by that he certainly wasn't in a good mood from that. But here's the more, and he should be upset with the way that they're playing right now. But here's the more important part. And this is what unless you're there, you just don't understand. And I understand why people would look at that video and feel like Chris took it out of context or whatever. And full disclosure, he's a friend of mine, right? Like, I've lived that life. I was a beat writer, NBA beat writer for 8 years. I know this better than anybody. He's a friend of mine. We golf. We talk all the time. What you see on camera is less than 10% of interactions between writer, beat writer, and star athlete. These guys are together at morning shoot-arounds when nobody else is around. You see them at morning shoot-around on game days. You see them pregame. You see them postgame. You see them before the cameras go on for the scrum. You might talk to them then. You might talk to them after the cameras are shut off. And again, I'll go back to my experience. When I was with LeBron, we would talk at length prior to him doing the scrum. And what you see there on camera is the scrum. That's when 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, how many people, media people are there. They all gather around. He does one availability for everybody. Ask the questions. They're recorded on camera and recorders and everything else, and that's it. But when you are a beat writer, you get special access. When you're there every day, road, home, away, whatever, you have more of a relationship than anybody else. So therefore, you have more access than anybody else. I would say Chris knows Donovan better than any other media member in Cleveland because Chris is the only beat writer that covers the team, that travels with the team. So he's with him constantly. I wasn't there. I was in the locker room. I don't know. But I could guarantee you there was conversations that they had that night, either prior to that, what you saw, after that interaction, or both. And the story that he wrote for Cleveland.com was more than fair. Like, I thought it portrayed exactly what was said and what happened. If people want to get hung up on this little text thing that he sent, okay, fine. But I guess I would say if Chris is really trying to stir the pot and he's really trying to clickbait, which I hate that word, but if he's trying to like stir shit up, would it make more sense for him to stir shit up on a subtext chain that people pay for that has probably a minimal reach, or Twitter, where I guarantee you his following is probably 10x that of what it is on the subtext? Which would you rather do? If you're trying to draw people into your story, would you send it to a smaller number of people or to a larger number of people with the link below it? So let's just use some logic and common sense to this. It's very reasonable to me that Donovan was pissed, and Chris, from being around him as much as he is, knew that Donovan was pissed. Just because you didn't see what you wanted to see in that 30-second snippet doesn't mean Donovan wasn't pissed. And the one thing about like Chris interjecting his name in that text, if we really want to like go Zapruder film on this, again, if Chris interjected it and Donovan didn't say it, that's a really bad look for Chris. Really bad look. He shouldn't do that. I have a hard time believing that's true. It's more likely to me, it's more logical to me that when the cameras are shut off, Donovan, in a one-on-one, just a random conversation like you and I are having right now, would look at him and go, "It's F in April, Chris. It's F in April." Like, doesn't that seem reasonable and logical? Like, but again, unless you live the life and you are and you understand how many interactions you have off of camera, I totally get why people would see that video and say, "Oh, well, he's making it up or he's trying to stir drama and everything." I guarantee you, excuse me, the most important thing for Chris is that relationship with Donovan.
Yeah.
And you don't jeopardize a relationship with the guy over that. So I have my own theories as to why this became what it became and why the video got put out. But we don't need to get into it because I don't have any evidence or proof of it. But I completely understand why Chris put the text out that he did. And I would just say again, if Chris is really trying to bait people in, he would have put that on Twitter, not on a group subtext.
Yeah, I told you the all caps pissed, seeing that before I read the article, changed the tone of which I read the article with, which may have shaped a little bit of my impression of how the overall conversation went. But I thought the context was in the article. Chris did a good job explaining and tying back to their previous conversation earlier in the year. It's just when you see pissed in all caps, in your mind, it looks like a certain something, and then it's not. But also when I tell you elite basketball player, your mind does not come to Nikola Jokic. Like there are very different perceptions of reality, and there's no one size fits all description for a term like pissed or happy or sad. I could just speak from my own personal experiences. Like I could have a terrible day, and as soon as the lights and cameras come on, you would never know it on air. Like I got a pretty good poker face, and these NBA players who are used to having cameras in their face and living their life in the limelight and in public have a pretty good filter of turning it on, turning it off. So that was my only qualm with the whole situation. The fact that the text went out viral and then spread across Twitter before we really had the context of to see the video and have it not match up. But I thought kind of the attacks on Chris for completely misrepresenting what happened were just unfounded and unfair because the context was in the article.
I'll give you one real quick example, and then we can move on because you did a really deep dive on Evan Mobley I want to get to.
Cool.
But NBA Finals, the year the Cavs won the championship, they went, I think it was when they went down 3-1. I think it was when they went down 3-1. I talked about this morning on the radio for a minute, but Steph fouled LeBron. LeBron thought he got fouled in the first quarter. It would have been Steph's second foul. They didn't call it. LeBron was furious after the game. He was talking to me in the locker room. He was really upset that they missed the foul because it would have taken Steph out of the game, and LeBron felt like it would have completely changed the game if Steph's out of the game for the last 5-6 minutes of the first quarter. And he was hot. Like, he was really mad. And it's just he and I talking as he's getting dressed, and that's in the playoffs when you got to do podiums and everything else. And I told him, said, I'm going to ask you about this at the podium, just so you know. We're going to talk about this when you're at the podium. And he said, you can ask it, but like, I'm going to be cooled down by then. I ain't going to answer it the same way. Now, if I went out and texted, LeBron was pissed he didn't get a foul call on Steph in that game, and you matched it up with his answer, because I did ask him about it, and you match it up with his answer that he gave from the podium, people would look at me and say, you're trying to stir shit up. That's not what he said. But who's right? Was he really pissed or wasn't he? Yeah. And that's why there's so much nuance to this that it's a very complicated conversation to what should be a very simple answer.
All right, let's get to this Evan Mobley deep dive. If you enjoy the Ultimate Cavs show, make sure you turn into the Ultimate Brown show every Monday and Friday with G. Bush, the Ultimate 216 show on Thursdays with Earl, and the Ultimate Guardian show every Monday with Adam the Bull and Zach Meisel. All right, Jason, let's do this Evan Mobley deep dive.
Yep.
I don't know why I was inspired to do this a couple of weeks ago. I spent way too much time on it. And I want to say, before we get into anything, I want to make this crystal clear. If Evan Mobley never gets better than he is today, he's a 10 to 15-year solid, good NBA player. Evan Mobley is not bad. Evan Mobley is not a bust. If he never gets any better than he is today, Evan Mobley will make a lot of money and have a very successful NBA career. So let's get that on the record now. Evan Mobley, I'm not saying he sucks by any means. You guys can make your own determinations on what the findings of this study and case kind of come out to. But let me make it clear. Evan Mobley is a good NBA player, a valuable NBA player. And while he may not have made the giant leap in year 3 that we had hoped, he has made improvements to his game across the board. And if he never gets better, he could retire tomorrow as a good, established NBA player. Is that a good baseline to be at?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. That's fair.
Make sure we're clear on that. So here's what I did, guys. We've always talked about, is Evan Mobley a unicorn? Jason, you said when they first traded for Donovan Mitchell, Donovan's a great player, but if this team's going to win a championship, Evan has to be the best player on the team. He was the unicorn. He was the next guy. We asked when we first started the show, could he be the Cavs' Tim Duncan? Could he be the pillar of a championship franchise, a championship foundation in the NBA? So I went back, and you could have gone back further. I went back to the 2013 draft, 11 drafts, so there's 33 players in this study. I looked at the top 3 picks in every draft since 2013 and tried to figure out where they were after year 3 to see, okay, how many guys by year 3 were established stars? How many guys by year 3 were complete flameouts? How many guys did we not have an answer on yet? And of the guys we weren't sure yet, how many have developed into what? So I broke this down into a bunch of categories. We're going to run through them draft by draft and then category by category. But just to give everyone a refresher, here are the top 3 picks every year dating back to 2013. In 2013,
Oh, yes.
Victor Oladipo, Otto Porter Jr. draft. By year 3, Bennett was out of the league, essentially a complete bust. Oladipo by year 3, a lot of question marks. Otto Porter Jr. by year 3, not living up to a top 3 draft pick potential. 2014 draft, Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Joel Embiid. 2015 draft, you had Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Jahlil Okafor. 2016, Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, and Jaylen Brown. 2017, you had Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, and Jason Tatum. 2018, DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley Jr., and Luka Doncic. 2019, Zion, Ja, and RJ Barrett. 2020, the COVID draft, you had Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, and LaMelo Ball. 2021, the Evan Mobley draft, Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green, also in the top 3 of that class. 2022, you had Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, and Jabari Smith Jr. And this most recent draft, you had Victor Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, and Scoot Henderson. So those are the 33 players that I'm going to use for this study. Going back to the 2013 draft, I broke these guys into different categories. Jason, at any point you have any questions, let me know. I have some answers on some of the guys' stats at year 3, why I put them in different categories.
Okay.
But those are the 33 players we are using to put into these different categories. Top 3 picks dating back to 2013. So of those 33, I thought there were 3 that were immediate stars. As soon as they touched the court, you knew that guy could be the guy we build a franchise around. And now before I tell you who those are, mind you, this is all after year 3. You're going to have different opinions on some of these guys as time has unfolded and their stories have been written. But this is as of year 3, or in Victor Wembanyama's case, as of 6 months into his NBA career. The 3 guys I thought immediate stars as soon as they stepped on the court were Wemby, Zion, and Luka. Luka was averaging 25, 7, and 7 as a rookie. Wemby's doing things we've never seen before. And Zion, despite getting hurt his rookie season, was averaging 23, 7, and 4, and looked every part of the player he was advertised to be coming out of Duke. Do you have any issue with that, Jason?
No.
Okay. So now we go to by year 3. Those guys stepped in immediate stars. These are guys by year 3. So at the conclusion of their 3rd season, we knew that's a dude. That is a legitimate guy. And I got 9 of these guys. Embiid, who didn't play his first 2 seasons, made all NBA second team in his rookie year, which was year 3. Ben Simmons, who's fallen off a cliff now, but at the end of year 3, had made an all NBA team, an all defensive team, and 2 all-star games. Karl Anthony Towns was a 24-point scorer. Jason Tatum, John Morant was averaging 28 and 7 at the conclusion of his 3rd season. Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, you may say he's not a star. I tend to agree, but at least you know you have something there. Paolo Banchero is already an all-star in his 2nd year. And if you want to say Chet Holmgren's too high, sure, but he's fallen into the big 3 in OKC, overcoming a lot of guys who had more established there. And if you watch how they run their offense, I think his ceiling and potential is through the roof. If you want to say Holmgren's a little too high, probably won't argue with it. Maybe I'm a little too high on Holmgren. But those are the guys by year 3. And in Banchero and Holmgren's instance, year 2, who I think could already be in that star category. LaMelo, I'm not buying a stock of him and building a franchise around him, but he's certainly not just a guy. Fair?
Yeah, if Holmgren's too high, he's not going to be next year if he keeps progressing at this. He's certainly on that path. So I won't dispute anyone on that list either. I think you're in good shape.
Okay. So now we get to the next group. And there's a lot of names in this list because this is the group of guys who I labeled this good player by year 3, but is this it? And I'm not seeing where the graphic is because there's so many of these in here. So let me just read you the names on this list who fit in here. And then I have them in different categories. This is good by year 3, but is this it? Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Victor Oladipo, Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Jabari Smith Jr., Cade Cunningham, RJ Barrett, Lonzo Ball, and Brandon Miller. 11 guys. And here's how I think those guys who we had question marks after year 3 have developed since then. So this is using a little hindsight. After year 3, those guys, I don't think you can make a definitive decision if they're great, if they're bad. We know they're good, but what's their ceiling? Well, of those guys, here are the guys I think turned into legitimate tier 1, top 10 in the NBA guys, Jason. That's it. Nobody. Doesn't exist. So no one who we had questions after year 3, in my opinion, have developed into a guy that you could build a franchise around. You may disagree. We'll keep going through these. But I don't think any of the guys that we weren't sure about after 3 years has turned into the guy that we felt confident in. The next one, good players, very good players, but not a number one. You had Jaylen Brown, who's obviously the highest paid player in basketball now, a multiple-time All-Star. But at best, he's a third-team All-NBA guy. You can't build a team around Jaylen Brown. He's a great two. Same thing with Brandon Ingram. Good player. You want Brandon Ingram, but I don't think he could be the centerpiece of your team. And if you want to say Victor Oladipo wasn't ever very good, he made an All-NBA team. He had that one great year after a couple changes. He doesn't really fit into any other categories. He's fallen off a short shooting star level stint, Jason. But those are the only three guys who I think legitimately turned into a real building block out of that group.
I think Brown, I'm higher on Brown than you are, I think.
Okay.
And I wonder if you got him away from Tatum, if he would be more of a clear number one. I don't know. I can't quibble too much with where you're at. I really like what you've done with this whole study. But I think Brown could be that guy. I go back to like when James Harden was in OKC. And maybe the answer is yes, and I'm misremembering, but did we really think Harden would bloom into an MVP player?
No. They would have traded if they did. They wouldn't have traded if they did.
Right.
So.
But their owner was cheap and didn't want to pay the luxury tax. They were forced to trade him. But he was around guys that took up so much oxygen. I think Jaylen Brown on his own team maybe is more of a one, but we're splitting hairs here.
Okay. Next up. So these were solid guys, but never turned into stars. Wiggins actually averaged 24 points a game after his third season, but it was on a terrible Minnesota team. Just felt like empty stats. Jabari Parker got hurt. DeAndre Ayton, RJ Barrett, Lonzo Ball. Are any of those guys significantly better now than we thought they were at year 3? If anything, Ayton's gone down. Barrett just got traded. Lonzo Ball can't stay healthy. Guys who were solid players. Wiggins had that stretch for Golden State that helped them win a title, but obviously not star-level players.
Yeah, I think Wiggins' career was helped by going to Golden State quite a bit, but that's fair. They were what they were. Frankly, those were all underachievers compared to what we thought they were going to be.
Next is kind of the underachievers. They were decent players, but that's really it. Otto Porter Jr., D'Angelo Russell, Markelle Fultz, Marvin Bagley Jr. Guys who, we have them fine, but you're not really winning anything with those four. And then you have the bust by year 3. Anthony Bennett, Jahlil Okafor, James Wiseman. Scoot Henderson's been terrible this season, but it's way too early to call him a bust. He just doesn't fit anywhere else. So that leaves guys like Jaylen Brown and Evan Mobley, not Jaylen Brown, Jalen Green and Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham and Jabari Smith and Brandon Miller. They fall into the guys it's too early to tell category. But when I look at this big list here, Jason, you look at all those guys, especially the 11 guys who weren't stars by year 3. We're good, but not stars. It doesn't mean Evan Mobley can't turn into a star. It doesn't mean he develops at his own pace and by year 5, 6 can be that guy. But there's not a long track record in the last decade plus of the NBA of guys taking that significant leap after year 3 if they hadn't done it already. And I say that just to say we may have to change the context in which we look at Evan Mobley, where instead of being the guy, he's one of the guys.
And I can't argue that. I mean, you have a ton of data there to back that up. The reason why I think Evan might be the exception is because the only club missing out of his bag is the three-point shot. And we talked about this on the show yesterday. Mm-hmm. Now it's like missing the driver. It's like not being able to hit driver off the tee in today's NBA. It's a big club that you're missing. But we've seen signs this year of it coming. And the shot he hit against Philly the other night is a prime example. Huge. No hesitation. Has the awareness, step back to the baseline, step back behind the line, shoot, catch and shoot, splash. That's what you need. If he develops that, he is now elevated to the other categories that we're talking about. So he's already there. I think he's already elite in other areas. It's that one that's missing, but we've seen signs this year, particularly second half of the season, of it coming. And so that's why I think he might buck the trend to what you've laid out, but there's no denying the evidence that you've laid out. For the most part, what you are by year 3 over the last decade is probably who you're going to be for better or worse. But I do think there's a chance that he bucks the trend on that.
And there are guys like Jaylen Brown by year 3 was averaging 14 points per game. He finished his year 3 season averaging 14 points per game. He's now a 25 point per game scorer in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's not to say you can't get better.
Right.
I think we all expect Evan Mobley to continue to develop and get better, just like he had from his rookie season to his sophomore season to this season. We hope he takes that next giant step at some point because adding that 3-point shot will unlock all the rest of his offense. He has the physical tools. His fluidness offensively and his decision-making, Jason, is what impressed me most. I just think looking back at the last 10 years, and I always say this, and I made the joke on Monday, is he a unicorn or is he just a really good racehorse without a horn? Because I think he might be a really good racehorse without a horn, especially if he can't develop that 3-point shot, where he's a guy you want on your team. You could be a very good NBA team if Evan Mobley is one of your top couple players. But the idea that he could be the best player on a championship team, we may just have to adjust that expectation. And guess what? There's like 10 guys in the NBA each year that are capable of being the best guy on a championship team.
Yeah.
It's a very, very small, and 10 might be saying that may be way too big of a pool, Jason. It really may be 5 or 6, and that might even be casting too big of a net. So I don't say that as necessarily a giant knock on Evan Mobley. I just think those guys are so few and far between. They're so hard to come by. And the ones who are, like Wemby, for example, it doesn't really take them time to figure out their spot. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. When you play basketball, the ball finds the best players.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And that's my one big knock on Mobley. And you can blame the guards. He's a big, so he needs to be fed the ball. He's not bringing it off the court. You kind of know who needs the ball and when they need it. And it never feels like the Cavs make a conscious effort to feed Evan Mobley in the offense. Maybe there's numbers that disagree with that. I'm just telling you what my eye test sees and from watching and playing enough basketball, what my brain is telling me. They never feature Evan. And that may be an underlying message to this guy's a good offensive player. He's not a great offensive player. Our great offensive players need more touches. So I just think looking at the big picture, Evan's a good player, a guy you definitely want on your team. But I think we may have to start reevaluating our big picture outlook on what his true ceiling is. Is it sky high like Pluto, or is he in that really good all-star level range, but that ceiling is more Jupiter and Saturn?
Yeah. I do think that they need to make a more, I've said this for almost 2 years now. I wish that they'd make a more concerted effort to get him involved in the offense early.
Yeah.
And
Like Kevin Love.
It's exactly it. When Kevin was playing with Kyrie and LeBron, he got the first touch every night, elbow touch. Everybody knew it was coming. It didn't matter. That doesn't matter. You're not trying to surprise anyone. You're trying to let him catch a rhythm early.
Yeah.
And you win the tip, whatever. Rebound, come to the other end. First play of the game, it's Evan wherever he wants it, wherever he's comfortable. If he
whatever
wants
he wants, whatever play he calls it for himself.
Wherever he wants it. Get him involved early. Donovan and Darius usually are they're going to get theirs. They can get theirs anytime they want. Get your big man activated early. And you make a valid point that the most talented guys the ball finds them. But, the point I made early is the Cavs sort of flipped this. Their biggest piece that we thought was their biggest piece in Evan came last prior to the Donovan trade.
Yeah.
When usually that piece comes first, like Zion, like Wemby. Mm-hmm. That's the first piece. Cade Cunningham in Detroit, although point guards, that's a whole different conversation. So that guy comes first. You build around that guy. But then by the time you got everything else built around him, his contract's running out. He's coming in extension years. And you've got like a 2 or 3 year window where you can really contend with that guy. And then he's going to force his way out and go to a different market or whatever. Where the Cavs dropped their most valuable piece in last, then made the Donovan trade. So the growth and development of Evan Mobley was never at the forefront of this whole thing. It was, we got to win.
I got to push back on that for 1 sec. Just look at Chet Holmgren, though.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's not even a knock on Mobley. It's just the best guys, the guys who are truly, truly, truly special and unique, they find a way. And Chet Holmgren is on a better team than Cleveland.
Yep.
In his rookie season, by the way, because he didn't play all of last year. Now, he was in the system, and he's their third leading scorer. Jalen Williams, their second leading scorer, was a lottery pick last season who's jumped like 7 other guys in the rotation. He should win, in my opinion, most improved player. The guys who are special find a way.
Yeah, you're right.
Take all the other circumstances out. That basketball is a sport where age doesn't matter. That's why LeBron was able to dominate the league at 18, 19 years old playing against 30-year-olds. Age, it helps, but if you're special, it doesn't matter. No one's saying that Mobley's LeBron or of that caliber, but the special guys prove they're special right away. Yeah. And you look at the trends, and once again, These could all be broken. I'm not saying Mobley can never get there. I'm just saying maybe the percentage I thought he could is a little lower than it was because he hasn't taken that step yet. And if he was as good as a Wemby, or like if Wemby was in Mobley's spot, they'd be getting Wemby the ball. Or if Holmgren or Paolo Banchero. Like, obviously he wasn't available for draft, but you don't think the Cavs would adjust their off? Like, it is what it is in basketball. It happens in pickup too. A guy comes off the bench, you need an extra guy. Oh, damn, he's a great shooter. Guess who's getting the ball that next pickup game? The great shooter. So it is what it is. Jason, we got to take a quick break, a quick reminder that the Ultimate 216 show with Earls every Thursday. And on Monday, get the Ultimate Guardian show with Zach and Adam the Bull. And on Mondays and Fridays, you got the Ultimate Brown show with G. Bush. I want to get some fan comments at the end, Jason. So real quick.
Yeah.
Dean Wade's still out. No word when he's coming back. And I can't believe we're having this discussion with 7 games left in the regular season. But holy shit, the Cavs missed Dean Wade.
Same as last year. It was a massive hole in their rotation last year. Dean had the shoulder injury, was never the same player when he came back, and they didn't have a playable big off the bench because of it. I don't know it's quite to that situation this year, but Dean is very important to what they do offensively and defensively. And here we go again, where it's late in the year, playoff time, crunch time. You need your rotation set, and you need Dean Wade out on the floor, and he's not there. So, yeah, I hope it's not a repeat of last year. Them missing him is not a repeat of last year, but it was a massive hole in their lineup last year, not having him. He's a big
It's crazy. He scored that 22-point fourth quarter against the Celtics. I don't think he scored a point since, which is he may have. It just doesn't feel like it. He's a really good rebounder off the bench, and it's crazy how the Cavs miss him. But Jason, sorry for cutting that topic short, but I want to get to some comments here on that study because I saw a bunch of them popping up and I had all the graphics up, so I couldn't read them.
Okay.
And I put my glasses on to make sure I could read them. But let's see. We got Ian said Cavs went from developing young players to trying to win the East with the Mitchell trade, yet folks are shocked he's not yet prime Kevin Garnett level.
I think we addressed that, both of us.
Yeah.
And you're right. If he was worthy, they'd get it to him. I also think they could have do a better job of getting him involved.
Both agree. Oren Smith said Ben Simmons couldn't shoot. He was a bust. Year 3, he was an all-NBA, all-defensive guy. I don't think that considers bust. He has become a bust, but reminder, this was based off where they were at year 3.
Where they were at year 3.
Not where they're at today. R. Jones says Mobley doesn't belong with those guys. I'm not quite sure what those guys he's referring to. Brandon Miller destroyed Cleveland. I think he's really freaking good, Jason. Really, really good. And he's a guy who you got to see it for more than 1 year. I don't think he's that level of stardom, but he's been phenomenal so far. Worst rookie season, Scoot or Garland. Listen, I like Scoot. My boy's out in Portland, but it has not been a great rookie season. R. Jones says Scoot better than Garland. Not a chance in hell. Stop it. Freddie B says Mobley is a menace at the basket on defense.
Yes.
He's not soft. He's just not a loudmouth type dude. That is a fact. Let's see. Ian says there's a unicorn every year. That term has become so diluted. It's true, which is why I want to make the distinction. He could be a really good racehorse and not a unicorn. Wemby's a unicorn. Chet's a unicorn. Paolo Banchero in his own right is a unicorn. I'm not quite sure Evan Mobley has that unique skill set that makes him a unicorn. Evan says, who wins the shooting contest, Mobley or McNuggets?
McNuggets.
Dude, NBA players can shoot the shit out the ball even if they're not shooters. Like, I've seen Evan in warm-ups at games make 15, 16 in a row. I give him a run for his money. Nah, I'm taking myself. Come on. Who are you kidding? Let's see. I know who's shooting more air balls. That's Mobley for sure. Wemby is Pop coaching him. Yeah, coaching makes a difference. Like, none of us are going to deny that. Coaching absolutely makes a difference. Ian says the Dean Wade defenders continue to be vindicated, which is true. And lastly, Evan said, is there any world where we lose in the first round and JB returns barring massive injuries?
No.
I don't think so either.
First round, he's out too.
Sprout says Pop and Chet is the only big and doesn't share space with another center. All fair. However, if the Cavs thought that they could do it without having a space, they wouldn't play both bigs at the same time. That's my point. You can make whatever you need. And last one, some random dude named Earl of Pearl in a blue laminated sweatshirt, which you definitely shouldn't buy for yourself, says, Jason, Nick, and Darryl mentioned you on 92.3 The Fan. saying blaming Spida is the easiest thing to do if the season duplicates last season's first round exit.
Saying the Stars take the blame.
It happens. It is what it is. That's the way we live, the world we live in. All right, Jason, appreciate you as always. Safe travels to Michigan. Appreciate everyone who tuned in to the Ultimate Cavs Show early edition. We are wrapping up before 3. Cavs play tonight, 9 o'clock against Utah, and we will see y'all on UCSS tomorrow. Peace.